it's been kind of nonstop. I went from LA to Virginia to DC to Lithuania, back to LA, and then back to Paris in like the last 3.5 weeks. I'm trying to figure out like which way's up or which way's down right now.
Welcome to Find Your Freedom, the best entrepreneurship podcast. One of our core beliefs is to never stop learning, and one of the best ways to learn is to have real conversations with incredible entrepreneurs who have done amazing things. In an effort to grow the FYF community, it would mean the world to us if you would subscribe on your favorite audio platform, watch episodes on YouTube, and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. Our goal is to build a community uniting successful entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, and providing a one-stop shop for all the resources you need to find your own freedom. All right, just finished recording with Eric Chang, the founder and principal of international disputes firm Chang Law. Eric joined us from Paris and was really candid discussing the struggles of how and when to venture out on his own, along with battling imposter syndrome and the mistakes that he made along the way. It was a super interesting conversation about entrepreneurship, the psychology of starting a business, building an international law practice, and Eric finding his freedom with free time. I think you're really gonna enjoy it. Yo. Welcome, Eric. We are so excited to have you on today.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate you being here.
Eric, we're so stoked to have you, my man. Welcome to the Find Your Freedom podcast. I think this is a cool place to start. What milestone or achievement are you most proud of so far in your career?
Yeah, I think that a big thing for me has been is my ability to control my time, to determine my own time, and being able to master my own schedule. And I come from a big law background, so working at really big law firms where you're working for somebody else, you're on their schedule, you've got these billable requirements, and I did that for a decade, and always kind of feeling like I wasn't in control of my own schedule and my own life time wise. Thinking about when I could take vacations, things like that. And I think one of the big things that I've gained being out on my own is controlling my time. I get a full 8 to 9. I need like 9 hours of sleep ideally, and most days I get it, and like everything downstream like just is so much better during the day because like I'm rested, because I don't, if I need the extra hour of sleep, I can do that, and it's okay. The emails will wait. Nobody's gonna, I don't have to, be on somebody else's schedule. And then in a wider sense, having more time to myself, or being able to schedule my time the way I want, has allowed me to kind of achieve this long time objective of mine, which is to join the Army as a reservist. And I joined the Army JAG Corps, being a lawyer for the Army, which is a part-time job, which is now really reduced my available time, but it's something I want to do. And I never could have done it, while I was, working for somebody else, working at a big law firm. This was only something that was conceivable once I was out on my own. So
That's huge, man. That is a massive achievement.
yeah, it just makes, it's my quality of life has improved a ton, and I think that's an achievement that I'm very happy with.
Going back now, Eric, when did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
Yeah, pretty early on, but like most lawyers, people who we're kind of people who do okay in school but really don't know what else to do, and we kind of fall into it. It's like, wow, okay, I'm done with my undergrad, might as well go to law school now. And a lot of it was my immigrant parents kind of pushing me to get like a professional degree. So there wasn't, I wouldn't say that I fell into it with any sort of huge passion, the way somebody might, I don't know, want to get into public service or whatever. But I think it's something that I've grown to really appreciate and love, and obviously it's something that I think I'm good at, and that's allowed me to carve out a successful career, and give me the freedom to do other stuff.
So you kind of fell into it, but fortunately for you, you ended up falling in love with it. So I guess that kind of worked out fortuitously.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and that's probably true of a lot of folks. I mean, so much of our careers are sort of these completely happenstance accidents. You know what I mean? Your career takes a left turn here and a right turn there, and but I think for most people, they kind of fall into whatever jobs or careers that they do. But a lot of them can be very satisfied with with it, even though it wasn't terribly planned out, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
so you became an attorney, and then at what point did you, in that early part of your career, did you have aspirations to start your own firm? Was that something going in when you decided to be an attorney? You're like, I'm going to do X years working for someone else until I feel comfortable and confident going out on my own, opening my own firm, or did that come later where you thought about doing that?
Yeah. No, yeah, I did not go in thinking I was going to do this at all. Again, like, life kind of takes these weird, throws you these curveballs. I went into big law, and by big law, I mean, it's just a term that means working for these big international law firms, usually based in big cities like New York or Washington D.C. or Paris or London. But I wanted to go into big law. That was a big goal of mine, and I thought that I wanted to go in and to become partner there. That's the brass ring they kind of hold out at you. But I left in 2012. And then, I really burned out of it. I must say, in 2010, I ended up collapsing at an airport just from exhaustion. I just,
wow.
had been working so hard, and I was just like, all right, I am done with that. It took me another 2 years. And then after I left, I left New York, and for just a few months, I was at a small San Francisco shop doing the same thing. And the idea was build the practice, my practice, which is international disputes, build it for the firm. And it didn't really work out. We really kind of didn't see eye to eye on goals and objectives. And at the time, I was like, oh man, that for uh, a split second, I thought, man, that's I felt really bummed out. But it made me realize it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it made me realize that there was no reason I could not do the exact same thing on my own. I didn't need
I love that.
a firm to do that. And it was kind of like this realization, and so it was really the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And went out on my own, and now it's a decade plus later.
So it only took you 2 years to listen to your body and what your body was telling you, like, dude, you're clocking too many hours here for someone else, for some other large firm. They're
Yeah,
expecting these huge hours, billable hours, and yeah, and that can take its toll. I have a few attorney friends that have like, similar, like, sometimes it's just a lot to have on your plate.
yeah.
So when you had the exit from the other firm, did you have plans to have immediately go out on your own from there, and you started formulating your business plan at that point?
No, there was I definitely had a moment of sort of, okay, what am I doing with my life? And
Right.
it wasn't immediately
We
clear
all
to
have that.
me. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't immediately clear to me, like, oh, okay, I should set something up on my own. And even when did sort of come to the conclusion, hey, I can do this. Let me give it a shot. I hedged. I was, still applying to other jobs, kind of looking around, networking, even as I set this thing up. So I don't think I went in whole hog. I know a lot of people just have this vision and this passionate sort of, you know, plan, and they just go in whole hog, 1,000% in. And that was not the case for me. I was very much sort of, hedging and not entirely certain. But it sort of little bit, bit by bit, little by little, as I started, moving forward, then I got my first client, and so on and so forth. I realized, like, hey, yeah, this thing has legs. I think I can make this work. And, I stopped thinking about, okay, what else might be out there? Do I need a plan B, or, like, something?
So Eric, you leased the space, opened the doors, started the company, formed the entity, And meanwhile, you're still sending resumes out to other firms thinking
Yeah,
maybe I'll still get another job?
yeah, that's my recollection. And when I started this, I like a lot of, I consider it a startup. It may be a law practice, which is not very, super sexy or innovative or whatever, but it's a startup, right? It's a startup, and I went in with a startup mentality, which was, do it on the absolute lowest cost basis possible. So it was set up a website. I looked into being a lawyer, so I looked into what are the different incorporation types. For me, it made
Right.
most sense to proceed as a sole prop because as lawyers, we're always personally liable. we can't you can't escape
Right.
it with a corporate veil. So you might as well go with the cheapest option, which is a sole prop, which is just on your own. So I did it, on the absolute sort of lowest cost.
Yeah, I think you kind of say it like most people go into it super intentionally, but I think it's actually like really a pretty even setup. A lot of people, um, I think, have this expectation that entrepreneurs are so intentional and go in like, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and just going to make it happen. I think it actually is very common to kind of the way that you did it. It's like, I think I can do that, but let me kind of hedge a little bit here and make sure that I still have some other things going, so I'm not like bringing in no income for extended periods of time. And you kind of set it up, it sounds like, so the market told you, like, you started getting some of your own clients and they started sharing it with other people, and it kind of slowly built up where you're like, you know what, I do have something here. At what point did that shift for you? Like a year down the line, once you had set it up, that you're like, all right, we're getting some runway here, I'm about to take off?
Yeah. Well, I'd say there were kind of two very specific time frames for me. One was about a year, maybe a year and a half in. Pulled in my first client. It was a very sort of bizarre case, and the client had worked with another lawyer, wasn't happy with them, and I kind of inherited this case at the very um, 2 months before the hearings. For this massive, pretty big case, and I had to like rework it and
Wow.
just get ready for it, and it was just a very intense kind of thing. And
And this is your first client, right, Eric?
not the first client, but the first like serious client, let's
Okay.
say.
First significant
And so
big
it
one.
was a yeah, first significant case, first significant client, where there was a prospect of serious fees coming in or serious revenue coming in. And the way we worked it out was it was a full contingency, which is basically I do the work for free, and if I win, I take a percentage of the recovery. But if nothing happens, then I don't get paid. And I decided to do that because we were close to the hearings, and I could kind of understand the risk and the uncertainty of a case kind of start to get less and less as you get closer to the hearing, and sort of everything sort of crystallizes, and you kind of see how strong of a case it is or not. And I felt comfortable enough, and the having had that big law experience, you kind of learn how to call the strikes and the fouls, right? Which ones are good and which ones are stinkers. So I decided to take that risk.
You knew the risk reward you were getting into.
hmm Yeah, so I did it. It paid out. So that the first paycheck was a big moment. So that was like one of those big moments. But I still felt like it was kind of a one-off. I don't know if this is going to, continue on. And I think it was maybe into year three that I just had this sort of moment, and it wasn't anything specific, but I was working. I had cases and ongoing cases, and I was plenty busy, and I just had this sort of realization, like, I feel like, hey, this is happening. It's got legs. Like you said, I've got some runway, and I think this is it's gonna happen. It's gonna work out. And it wasn't anything specific that made me feel that way. It was just sort of I woke up one day and it kind of dawned on me, and I was like, oh yeah.
That's that magic moment that we talk about on the show here. And it's funny. One of the things you said, Eric, that I found kind of interesting is, you get that first deal and it gives you like a shot in the arm, and you're like, okay, I can kind of do this, but at the same time, you're also still very unsure. It doesn't. That first deal doesn't give you the, oh yeah, like I got staying power. I'm gonna
I'm
be here
set.
forever.
Yeah.
Like my business is
Yeah.
dominating. It just gives you just enough to kind of keep going. So it's funny, like when you're looking back and you're remembering that, like it's a good feeling and a good moment, but then like you're like, oh, is that a one off? Is that a fluke?
Yeah,
And then it's funny
totally.
that
Yeah.
not until
It's a
another two
weird,
years in business did you finally feel like, okay, yeah, this I do have staying power and legitimacy, and I can now.
Yeah, the carrot comes a little closer and you're like, oh, it's not like as far away as I thought. Like I can keep walking. The carrot's still in front of me. That's really, really important.
yeah, it's a very weird thing. It's like an imposter syndrome, even as you're feeling good, right? You're like,
Yes.
this is awesome.
Yes.
But at the same time, that same thing is like, man, I feel like is this like real, right? Like I feel like an imposter, but
Yeah, you have
yeah,
like
it's
two sides of it. Like you wake up one morning, you're like, this is going, I got this. I know I can make this happen. And then the next morning you wake up like, what did I do? And you start questioning yourself and you're like, I'm not that good. Yeah, that imposter syndrome, I think, is something that every entrepreneur battles with, and,
yeah.
and something I, still battle with,
I still have it.
this
Yeah,
late on in my
every
career.
day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back at that 20-year-old or mid 20 something self, it sounds like a period. What is something you would tell that person to help with that process as you were building Chang Law?
Yeah, so many things. I think one of the things I would say is, in my 20s, and this is actually something. It's interesting because I see this now. So I joined the Army JAG Corps, and I'm a relatively junior officer for my age. So I'm like 10 years, about 10 years older than most of my cohort. And it's an interesting insight because uh, I feel like I'm coming in with a lot of life experience in certain ways, and I see this happening with some of the younger officers. They're doing the same thing that I did when I was in my 20s, my mid 20s or whatever. And I guess I would say, they're at a stage where they're chopping the wood in front of them, right? They're just like, yeah, give me more, give me more, give me more, and they're just chopping the wood. And if I had to give some advice to my 20-something-year-old self, I would say, it's not enough to be technically competent or to be the you know the workhorse. That's kind of actually it's sad to say, but that's the floor, right? You have to be technically competent. You have to have work
Wow.
ethic, but you have to also uh, get out of the office, network, and you have to understand like the human landscape of your office, your practice area, or your industry, right? And you have to go out and seek out your mentors. You have to just understand there's a human component. There's like an EQ component of business, because at the end of the day, every job is a human endeavor. You work with other people, and I just remember kind of being a young associate and thinking like, as long as I stay in my little office and I'm churning away and billing those hours and I'm good at what I do and I'm cranking out good work product, that's good. And it's not. You need to. There were things like, I needed to learn how to spread my work so that I was working with different partners, so that I had different people championing me, right? Rather than just one partner, right? That's like a social human thing that you have to learn,
Right.
and that you're not going to do if you're just like ensconced in your little office, just kind of beavering away. And so, that's something you learn, and you sure learn that really fast if you're going out on your own, right? Because there's nobody else to do it. You got to hit the pavement, you got to meet
Right.
the people, you got to get your name out, so on and so forth. So that's probably the number one thing that I've learned. And you just have to learn it the hard way sometimes. But yeah, if I
Right.
had to give myself that advice, that is the advice I would give to my 25-year-old self.
That's such a huge point. I mean, we've talked about here, Eric, that it's what you do during your 9 to 5 is important, but what you do after you get off at 5 or 6 or whatever time is possibly more important. Because, like you said, you got to be out networking outside of your office. You got to be studying up, researching, learning outside the office after you get off at night, and finding the time to do that on nights and weekends to really get ahead and set yourself apart. But then also, what I liked about what you said too is creating the reputation inside the office as well during the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and having not only your direct superior or direct report knowing how good you are, the other leaders in the company also need to know how good Eric Chang is. And when they're talking about who's getting promoted or who's going to get the opportunities, they all know about all the accomplishments and the special things that you're doing.
Yeah, people talk a lot these days. I mean, it wasn't called that when I was kind of a young associate, but now people talk about their personal brand, right? Which I think it's a little bit cliched, but it's true, right? You have a
Right.
brand, you have a reputation, right? That's the other way to put it.
Reputation,
And
absolutely.
it's your professional reputation. Yes, it gets developed in part by being the hard worker and by being technically proficient or competent, but it's also getting out and talking to people and being sociable and making sure people understand like what it is that you bring to the table, because people don't, nobody has the time to go out and figure that out, right? You have to tell them. So you got to go to those conferences, you got to go, you got to
Put in the FaceTime.
talk to people about yeah,
Yeah.
you got to put in the FaceTime for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of people in our audience that I think what you said a little earlier that's going to resonate with them, that they're not fully fulfilled in their job and they're thinking like, how am I going to, get to the other side of this? I don't want my life in 5 years to be like it is right now, grinding, not
Mhm.
fully loving what I'm doing, not fully fulfilled in what I'm doing. Can you kind of talk to them about how you worked that out? You gave us a detail about kind of the timeline of it, but psychologically now, and like talking to yourself or to the people in our audience that are in that position, can you give them some advice on what self-talk, what things they should be working on, and then what actionable things that you would recommend them do to help when now that you've gone through it?
Yeah, once I kind of figured out like, okay, I want to, all right, let's give this a go. And what do I need to do to get there? You kind of, me personally, I set myself an objective. I wrote out a business plan. Right? So I mean, not I don't think everybody has to do that. To me, it kind of helps me to crystallize my own thinking. I'm a lawyer, so we argue and we write, right? And especially
Right.
we write a lot. And sometimes I feel like I can only think if I'm writing it out. So for me, a business plan was like, okay, here's where I want to be in 5 years. And I kind of give myself whatever, it could be five, it could be four, whatever. But for me, it was 5 years. And I said, okay, by 5 years, I want to be doing, this, right? I want to have a relatively steady stream of clients. I want to be having a revenue of, I want to be doing at least as well as I did,
Yeah, set the goals. Okay.
yeah, in my last year as an associate working in a big law firm. And that's the sort of end state, right? And then you kind of work backwards. And then I I tend to get overwhelmed very easily. I'm just one of those people where like I look at a task and I'm like, yeah, and then I procrastinate. That's just, I know myself. I'm 46 now, and I just know that's how I operate.
So
So
you're
I
like
have to be very,
95% of the world.
yeah, yeah. So I have to be like very intentional about creating very bite-sized
Finite, actionable steps. I like
objectives.
that.
Yeah,
I
just
like that.
20. Yeah, in the army we call them 25-meter targets, right? Like you have 20, you can shoot at 25 meters, or you can shoot at 300, right? But start with a 25-meter target, start with the easy stuff, right? And then just kind of, do one thing,
Get some progress, get
knock
some
it out,
momentum.
move on to the next thing, knock it out. Yeah. And just look at what's in front of you, while sort of in the back of your mind keeping this larger objective. And you kind of do, again, it's a army lingo, but you do an azimuth check every now and then, like, hey, am I in, I've been kind of looking in front of me doing this for a while now. Now I check around, like, am I still generally in the right direction? Yeah, okay, back to back to doing the grind.
I love
And
that.
I find I need like little, okay. So for me, it was like, first things first, I need to set up a website, right? I need to look into then incorporation, or how do I set myself up as a business.
All the
Then I need,
structural.
yeah, just the sort of nuts and bolts of setting up a business, and those are like you need to get those done before you need to have like a very, very basic structure in place before you kind of go out into the world, right? Get some business cards, right? That's easy stuff, right? And it's a nice achievable thing. Boom, got the business cards. I designed it. Cool. It's a good feeling. I got a little thing done today or this week. Boom, check, and move on. And then the harder stuff. Okay, now I need to think about what are the 10 things I need to do to try to start pulling in clients, and then just kind of working on them like that. And otherwise, if I look at the big goal, it's like I'm I'm not gonna, it's just too overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to think it's realistic unless you break it up into those bite-size 25 meter things that you spoke about. I love that.
Yeah.
That's that's really great. Was there one big mistake? Kind of a two-part question. You can answer whichever is easier for you. Was there a biggest mistake that you made that you want to like tell our audience about, that landmine that they shouldn't do, or was there a piece of it that you're like, this is really integral that helped really make this step to my own law firm being a success? Which of those is easier?
Yeah. I guess I can answer both of them. And at the very beginning, I think it was almost like a psychological thing where, I was setting myself up, but I didn't tell a lot of folks about it, and I kind of kept it all to my own, because there's a psychological, almost like I wanted it to be successful before I could tell the world, like, hey, I'm out on my own. And I think that was, for very obvious reasons, for just plain marketing reasons, that's kind of dumb. but but also,
I feel that. Yeah.
yeah, but like, I just kind of felt like, well, I'm giving this a go, but I just, I don't want people to know until like maybe I have a client, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
I've had this much revenue coming in the door. Then I'll be able to kind of start handing out the cards and saying, yeah, I'm the successful, practitioner on my own, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but I think another problem with that, other than sort of the marketing piece of it, is that, I was doing everything on my own, and I was reinventing the wheel on my own. And it wasn't until probably, I want to say about 9 months in, maybe, I just, started talking to people. And then I started specifically talking to other folks who were roughly doing the same thing I was, maybe a little bit further along, maybe not further along. And then, we just started sharing notes. And then I talked to folks who were, some mentors of mine who actually, were senior partners at boutiques that, 30 to 50 lawyers. That's like huge, right? I mean, that's
Right.
really big. I used to think like, oh, 50 lawyers is like a tiny firm, coming from a big law shop. But doing it on my own, I understand
Right.
like what it actually takes to grow a business to that size. It's very, very impressive. And started talking to folks who had done that, and kind of asking them, hey, go back
That's so good.
20, 30 years. What was it like? And once you talk, you realize that, in a way, starting a business is the most banal thing in the world ever, right? Because everybody has done it before. So many people have done it before. So many people have like walked the exact same steps and had the same problems. And you can shortcut so many headaches by just talking to them and say, like, what was it like for you? How did you solve this problem? Walk me through it. Or maybe they haven't, but they've got the experience to have a good, head on their shoulders to be able to say, like, if I were you, I would do X, Y, or Z. And so the first, whatever, 9 months where I wasn't really talking to anybody, I think, well, that was a mistake. I should have started talking to people around me much sooner.
Where did you gain access? Where and how did you gain access to those mentors that were ahead of where you were or where you wanted to be?
Yeah, I think again, it goes to what I was saying earlier. You gotta seek them out because mentors. It You'll be lucky in your life if one or two people just kind of like latch onto you and just pick you up by your collar you and help you up because they identify like, hey, here's somebody who reminds me of me, and I'll pull them up. But most people don't do that. Like mentorship is something you have to seek out, and getting advice is something you have to seek out. So it doesn't do any good sort of like staying in by yourself and not talking to folks. You really need to go out. And then I find, I've found that people love to be mentors. People love to help people. I love now, I'm a bit older now, and I talk to young lawyers all the time, law students or young practitioners, and I love helping them out. Kind of paying it forward. It makes me feel good, and I feel like I've got a lot of knowledge and experience that's just, it's all in here, and I can kind of freely dispense it. And I love doing that. I think people enjoy being helpful. I think there was a Ben Franklin quote where he says, if somebody if somebody nobody somebody owes you a favor, they actually feel, if or rather if you owe them a favor, they feel more beholden to you. It's kind of like the same idea where when you're asking something for somebody, they actually feel really obliged to help out. And I have found that most people are like that. They're very sort of generous with their time and advice. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think a big piece of that goes back to something else that you said earlier also, which is if you have a reputation as a hard worker and a smart person with integrity, then the people around you who have seen or heard of you, they're much more apt to be responsive to when you do come to them for the advice and the things like that. So that comes back to how great you were in those big law firms previously, grinding, working hard, kind of putting a name for yourself. Then I'm sure some people notice that. And then when you do move on and grow and you're
Yeah,
looking for the advice, then they're much more apt to help you out there.
yeah. That's for sure. For sure. That's a
I just think that the interesting piece of psychology that you touched on initially in your explanation there is, when you first start out your company, you would think that you'd want to tell the world and share your excitement, market, network, but there's a fear of failure thing that's going on in your mind, like, if I tell everyone and then it doesn't work out, I'm going to be embarrassed. And I think there's a lot of that going on in most young entrepreneurs' minds. But if you can identify that, and like Eric said, instead of it taking you 9 months, maybe just come into it with that mindset that, you know, there's been so many businesses that have been started before mine, so many people that have walked this path before me, and I'm not going to be afraid, even though there's there's so many pitfalls along the way. I'm going to share this, and I'm going to get other people excited with me, look for the mentors, and try to accelerate my growth that way.
Yeah, totally. And I think I have to say that one of the things that's really, coming out of the tech startup culture, in the last, whatever, 30 years or so, that's been really good is that, in that world, um, it's not a black mark to have failed, to have tried and failed, right? It's like it's the old poem about the man in the arena, right? And a lot of folks in that world, um, they do a startup, it doesn't work, but that's actually on their resume for the next big thing because it's experience at the end of the day, right?
Eric, we like to ask all of our guests this very special question that kind of goes along with the vision and mission of Find Your Freedom, which is, how would you define entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a really tough question to answer, but I think for me, it's an attitude or a feeling more than it is, like a concrete, here's what I do to do this or to be this. Um, I think it's really some sort of an attitude which is somewhere in between faking it until you make it, and then just being comfortable with risk and ambiguity. Moving from the position of being, looking at the pool and like wanting to jump in to just jumping in and then realizing, yeah, the water's fine. The temperature's
I
fine, the
love
water's
that.
fine. It's going to be okay. And it's really sort of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Really, entrepreneurship is really kind of like a mindset and an attitude more than it is like a concrete, like, here is what I do or here's what I am. And for me, it's been, a lot of it has been this journey of waking up, and you never know where your next paycheck is coming from. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, but just have to learn how to be okay with that. Because on the flip side, it's also, you a lot of really great things could also be, happening to you. So it's just an attitude of being positive and accepting that risk and accepting that ambiguity, because the rewards can be very enriching.
Love that so much. Becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. That was the cherry on top there. I love that. So this was a great episode, Eric. We're so happy to welcome an attorney and a successful international attorney onto the show. This has been so great. You've had a very interesting path and a very interesting life. If people want to learn more or reach out to you, where should we send them?
Yeah, the easiest thing is to look me up on LinkedIn. You just look up Eric Chang on LinkedIn, or Chang Arbitration. You should be able to find me, and or you can just get on my website, changarbitration.com.
All right, that sounds good. Well, thank you so much again, Eric. We appreciated the time. And Eric's coming to us from Paris, France here. And thank you so much. Have a good one, and look forward to meeting with you again.
Yeah, Doug, Jonathan, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
One of our core beliefs is to never stop learning. And one of the best ways to learn is to have real conversations with incredible entrepreneurs who have done amazing things. In an effort to grow the FYF community, it would mean the world to us if you would subscribe on your favorite audio platform, watch episodes on YouTube, and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. Our goal is to build a community uniting successful entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, and providing a one-stop shop for all the resources you need to find your own freedom.